Hey everybody, welcome back to MUFC versus everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am Sean and I am humbly begging forgiveness for being so late today. I know that usually we do a show earlier in the morning and then occasionally one later on in the afternoon around this time. I'll admit that so the last 24 hours, we have had an internet outage for people like me who have AT&T internet. So no internet for the last 24 hours, just came back on about an hour or so ago. So I was super bummed. Obviously, wasn't even really able to get online and read anything, any news, get any updates or anything, just because when there's no Wi-Fi, everyone's using mobile data, which means that that's like 1,000 people trying to squeeze through a small doorway at one time. It's just my mobile data was spotty at best. So in any case, apologies for that, for no show this morning, but I am here now and I'm so happy to be here to give you some news, share my thoughts, but as always, most importantly, get your thoughts, your opinions, your views, your feedback. And so before we do get stuck in on some of the updates and the news and the rumors of the day, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. Hit the subscribe button if you're new. That helps the channel out even more. And go follow me on Twitter, MUFC versus everybody. That doesn't help the channel out, but it does let you in a little more of an insight into some of my thoughts and views on United, and most importantly, on my views on Arsenal and Liverpool and City, because that's who gets the brunt of my sarcasm these days online. So anyway, happy that you guys are here. Let's get stuck into some of the news that I was not able to bring you this morning, but I'm able to bring here now. So starting with midfield. So midfield has been a little quiet in the recent days, right? We were talking a lot about center backs. And then obviously we had some links ramp up with Ugarte and whatnot. One of the biggest pieces of news coming out. So I know we've all been reading and talking and speculating about a new midfielder, right? About a number 6, a Casemiro replacement. So we've all been talking about it. Well, there are reports coming out from Muppeteers today. So Muppeteers had a big video, obviously. Some reports coming out from Muppeteers saying that we might be looking at a Casemiro rotation option instead of a replacement. So on their YouTube channel, Muppeteers claimed that Casemiro staying at United beyond the summer has become a lot more likely than it originally was. The channel goes even further to allege that there's actually been a shift in the focus from let's get rid of Casemiro to now focusing on how can we get the most out of Casemiro this season. Manchester United are a little bit optimistic about Casemiro having a bounce back year, is what the site claims. So it's interesting, right? After his big dip in form, obviously after his lengthy injury, right, and the fact that I think maybe he rightfully so, he was probably a little flustered that he had to get a second opinion on the medical stuff because United's doctors couldn't be trusted. After comments from Sir Jim basically criticizing that transfer, everything about it, not the player, just the transfer, and all the links to the Saudi clubs this summer and early in the season, I think we all sort of thought that Casemiro was out the door, right? I think a lot of fan base kind of wanted that. A lot of fan base just was kind of putting all the context together, all the signs, and saying, hey, the writing's on the wall. Casemiro is probably going to leave. We're linked to all these midfielders. We're João Neves, Ugarte, Fofana, all these guys. But it doesn't sound like maybe that's as set as we thought. I think maybe that Casemiro's wages are getting in the way a little bit. I think that maybe he doesn't actually want to leave. I know, some of the reports with the Saudi clubs were that Casemiro didn't want to go to the Saudi club. It sounds like he still wants to play maybe in Europe, maybe wants to play in the big leagues. I don't know. He's not super old. I think that he's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. Darkrow, big up, Darkrow. How you doing, my friend? What are your thoughts on Casemiro possibly staying, according to United Muppeteers? Who out there is all for, hey, let's sell him, let's bring in someone else, time to move on. Again, Casemiro is the only legitimate number 6 that we have. McTominay is not a number 6. Amrabat technically is not here. Mainu is not a number 6. Mount isn't a number 6. Collier, you could say, is a number 6, but Collier has literally only played a couple friendlies for us, and he's been in the traveling squad towards the end of last season. Collier, and he's looked decent. Like the first couple, periods of the preseason tour. And again, it's preseason. You don't want to read too much into it, but Collier and like Amos and guys like that, they were a little shaky, but I have to admit, against Arsenal, Collier looked really, really good, especially given that was Arsenal played the other day like it was a cup final, the way they were going in tackles, and like the way Partey went in on Johnny Evans, the way that Gabriel Jesus went in on Casemiro. Like, I think that for Arsenal, that must have been a cup final. But Dark Crow, do you prefer a number 6 or a box-to-box? Do you mean like for a given player or like a position? I think that you have to have both, especially in the pivot. The great thing about playing that 4-2-3-1 is you should have both of those players should be able to do both when called upon. And I think that it's hard to say I have a preference on what, because there's an opportunity for both. But I think Casemiro is the only number 6, like defensive midfielder that we have. We have other midfielders like Manu, who on paper, right, the 4-2-3-1, the double pivot, that's a 6 on paper, but it's not a 6 in an actual match. Manu's footwork, his vision, his ability on the ball, what he offers in the final third, he's a number 8 to me. But I think that he's going to be more of that box-to-box role simply because he does also offer a little bit defensively. We saw that with England, especially in the Euros. He was making some great recovery tackles in his own third throughout that tournament. And so I think Manu can do a box-to-box. I think Manu can play in a holding role. I just think that we will be missing out if we limited him to that kind of role. I think I really like when he's got forward. Obviously, he scored some great goals. That goal against Wolves was a thing of beauty. His winner in the FA Cup final was a thing of beauty because he was in the box. Like, I don't want us to miss out on what we could get from Manu by kind of shoehorning him into that role and kind of almost typecasting him because he's good in the tackle. But Casemiro for me 6. So yeah, if that answered your question, cool. If you had okay, hold on, Darkro. If the defense is good, then you can play a box to box. But the defense side is weak. You need a typical defensive midfielder. Yeah, I think that it's all about. Again, on paper, it looks one way. It's all about in match, in possession, out of possession. In possession, we've seen we kind of shift a little bit. Out of possession, we shift as well. It's just about that. Then it becomes a system and less about, what position or what, a number 6 is. It's more about tactics at that point, management, players around you kind of thing. And that's why it's all like I tend to look at manager more than people who are like, oh, it's just oh, it's West Ham, they play this way. Well, let's see who the manager is before we say it's West Ham, they always play this way, because Aston Villa always played a certain way for so long until Unai Emery showed up, and now they don't play that way anymore. A couple of years ago, people would have thought maybe Aston Villa were almost like a West Ham or an Everton, very defensively, very counterattack. They don't play that way anymore, and so you really want to look at manager first, and then we look at the players on hand, and then that will kind of match up. So, but what do you prefer? You like? It sounds like you're like, yeah, defense. And I think that's been our problem for so long is we didn't have a number 6, so our defense was exposed, and then we didn't have a defense, so our midfield was exposed last year. So the stars really haven't lined up for us in the last couple of years, especially. So it is what it is. Darko coming with the questions tonight. I love it. Haven't we failed in getting a typical number 6 after Keane left? No, because we haven't technically. I would say I think that we haven't failed as far as signing 6s. I think that some of the 6s we've signed just haven't worked out. Remember, we signed Morgan Schneiderlin, number 6, who was really, really good at Southampton, right? Like, I was excited when we signed Schneiderlin. He just didn't actually work out. We signed Nemanja Matic. Nemanja Matic was a good signing for us. He isn't your typical destroyer. He's more like a Busquets kind of. He's like a what I call like a holding midfielder, who's just kind of keep things ticking. Matic was actually very good on the ball. I saw him. I watched him nutmeg a few people. He's got a good pass and a good shot. He's a number 6. Casemiro, obviously one of the best defensive midfielders of his generation. Obviously, he's older now, so you're going to decline. That happens with every player. Remember the old saying, "Father Time is undefeated." That's just going to happen. So we've signed some good 6s. We just, some of them we signed a little late, and then some of them just didn't end up working out for us. I think in some ways, again, it comes about management. Not every manager wants just a straight up defensive midfielder. Some managers, especially some of your more attack-minded, more tactical managers who might even play with a double pivot are going to want their double pivot players to be able to contribute on and off the ball adequately. And so a lot of that is going to depend. I think if you play a 4-3-3, you're going to see a more atypical like number 6 in that deepest role. But again, it's just going to depend. So Danny B, big up, man. How are you doing, my friend? If you caught the beginning, again, sorry for no video this morning. We had an internet outage for the last 24 hours, so I had no internet until about an hour ago. So, but I was ready and raring to go to jump on with the news. So glad you guys are all here. Talking about Casemiro possibly staying next season, according to Muppeteers, getting everyone's thoughts. Darkrow's got some good thoughts on it. Darkrow wants to know, what did Sir Alex Ferguson see in Jemba when he bought him? See, and this is the thing. And this is why it's really hard to beat Ten Hag with like the Antony stick, because you never know how a signing is going to work out when you sign him. You just never do. It could go really well, it could not, and some players do need a little more time, and some players it might not even be the league is too many. If it's just the wrong team at the wrong time. We were all excited for Memphis Depay, and I think it was the wrong time for Memphis. I think that if he had gone to Lyon and then we had bought him like after 2 years of Lyon, I think we would have seen a totally different player than buying him as like a 21-year-old straight off of a good season in the Eredivisie. I think timing is very important in football, and that's not just with a player's development, but just timing with, you know, the managers. Given the amount of managers United have had in the last decade, I mean, a player is going to come in, and a player who's been here for 5 years will have already worked under like 4 different managers. So it's hard to do that. And one of these books behind me, so this book Edge by Ben Littleton, like I've said before, there was a study done across 9 different sports over 30 different years that showed a correlation between a lack of individual player development compared to high turnover rate. So the more you have new managers and new turnover, the less the individual player is going to develop. We've seen it at United. We've seen it at Chelsea, for instance, when they keep sacking managers. Like, it happens. And so stability is key. There's a lot that goes into that. And I don't want to go into that tangent, but I don't know what Sir Alex saw in Jemba. What did Graham Souness see in Ali Dia? Like, if you know, you know. Go look up Ali Dia. But Sir Alex gets it wrong. Unai Emery got it wrong with Nicola Pepe. We got it wrong with Antony. And Antony was a good player at Ajax. It hasn't translated. And I think Antony's confidence is shot. But it's going to happen now and then. Not every signing is going to be a banger. It's just normal in football. So, good questions, though, Darkrow. Sticking with that number 6 role, though, we don't have a ton of depth there, like I said. Again, even if Casemiro sticks around, he's really right now the only number 6 we have, technically. So, Muppeteers had some more to say to this. They also touched upon our search for midfield depth, bringing up the possibility of our reported priority target, Manuel Ugarte. They've added a little twist there. So, of course, PSG are demanding a big fee. They just spent a lot of money on João Neves. We want Ugarte. Luis Enrique is not interested in Ugarte. Ugarte wants to leave. Personal terms are reportedly agree. It's all there. Problem is, we don't want to pay what PSG are demanding. PSG don't want to lower their price. We don't have a ton of money rolling around. So this might turn into an Amrabat situation last summer, according to Muppeteers. They claim that United are right now exploring a loan for Ugarte, and there's going to be an option or maybe even an obligation to buy, depending on the conditions and the terms there. Muppeteers claims that this is becoming a more likely option for us, and they claim that actually it's a more suitable option for us. I think financially it is more suitable, but I think that we obviously want to get him for a lower price than that 70 million. I don't have a problem with the loan. It could be a really good tap in for us. We get the player, and we might not have to keep him if he doesn't work out, and we could get him for cheaper. And if he does work out, that's awesome. I like Ugarte. I think he has what it takes to play in this league. I think he has a lot of physical, got that dog in him like Lisandro Martinez does. I like Ugarte. What do you think about this? Would you rather just go for it and get him? Would you just pay what they want? There's a loan. Do you not even like Ugarte? Darko wants to know about free agent Rabiot. We will get to that in a moment, my friend. We will get to that. Are you peeking at my notes here, man? You're jumping all over it. But Ugarte, I know that it's gone quiet a little bit this week, but could be an option. Could be an option on loan. Now, whether that means we don't have money whether that means we don't want to spend that much on that position because we're waiting for something else. I mean, we're still haggling with Bayern Munich over De Ligt. Who knows? But sounds like the conversation is still open for Ugarte. That door has not shut, and it's nice to know at least that we're working on these deals behind the scenes. I know it's gone quiet, and a lot of fans get frustrated with that, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. So we're going to have some what we call permanence. So developmental psychologists will talk about object permanence. I preach emotional permanence in a relationship. This is transfer permanence. There's deals, there's working still going on even when there's not news about it visually that you can see. So let's just trust that. So Danny B says Ugarte is the profile we need, a ball-winning destroyer, sweep up the mid after a high press. I think so too. I think in an ideal world, he would offer a little more on the ball, like a Mats Wiefer or a Hjulmand or someone like that. But I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, I've not made my feelings hidden about Ugarte. I love Ugarte. If you go back, I did that deep dive video on Ugarte, his numbers, his career, what he offers. Go check that out if you haven't yet. I'm a big fan of Ugarte. I like that style. And Ten Hag has used that style before. Plus, I do think Ugarte is young enough that Ten Hag can actually develop him to offer a little bit more on the ball, kind of like what we've seen with Casemiro and whatnot. Edson Alvarez under Ten Hag, yes, he's a physical presence. Yes, he helps out defensively, but he's also actually pretty decent getting involved in the attack and the build-up as well. And I think a lot of that is Ten Hag, developing that side of the player's game. So Vibes, what's going on, man? How you doing? KD, hola, everybody's jumping in, man. On midnight here, and you're staying up for me, man. I appreciate that. Much love, you guys. Much love. Like I said, sorry I was late today. No internet for the last 24 hours where I am. All throughout the U.S., there's been like internet outages. So unfortunately, not much I can do about that. But to answer Darkrow's question, we do have some Adrien Rabiot updates. So this is coming from journalist Rudy Galletti. He claims that United are progressing with talks with Rabiot on a possible free transfer. We talked about this many times. I mentioned Rabiot months and months and months ago in my wildcard bargain signings for United videos. Go check that out. And plus, we've been linked with him. Reportedly, he doesn't want to go to Liverpool. Reportedly, he wants United. So y'all can take a big drink of the Scouse Tears. Oh, very bitter, very salty, the Scouse Tears energy drink. Reportedly, personal terms on an issue. He wants to come to United. We're talking with them and his agent. I think Rabiot would be an instant improvement to our matchday squad, to the starting 11, arguably as well. I think that I would play Rabiot over Casemiro. Personally, I would definitely play him over McTominay. Sounds like United might agree with that too, if the report should be to leave. So Caught Offside added a little more to this story, and they say United are leading the race to sign Rabiot, with talks heading in a positive direction, and all parties are now optimistic that an agreement can be struck soon. Reportedly, we're looking at around 130 to 145,000 pounds a week for the wages, plus the signing bonus. Like, remember, I've said many times, there's no such thing as a free signing. Yeah, they're a free agent, but there's no such thing as a free signing, because you're usually going to have to pay a signing bonus to get them to choose you over another club that might be interested. That's the way it works. So what do you guys think about Rabiot? Erickson out, Rabiot in, says Abebe Deliso. You're a new face. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the channel. Erickson out, Rabiot in, Casemiro out, Ugarte and Lindelof out, De Ligt in, Bissaka out, Mazraoui in. Better for next season at United. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot more business to do. Hopefully we can do stuff like that. Hopefully we can make some moves, right? Vibe said tomorrow too is a big day for me. Yeah, what's going on tomorrow? KD, I love Scouse Tears. Have they signed anyone yet? Have Liverpool signed anyone yet? No, there were reports that Rabiot rejected them. I think I want to say I saw Liverpool were linked with a midfielder, but I don't know how, because they literally bought 4 midfielders last summer, right? Danny B says, no thanks to Rabiot, but he would be better than Cass or McTominay. So if he's not better than them, if he's better than both, you still wouldn't want him? Just throwing that question out there. Darkrow, would you have gone for Rabiot if he had a price? Probably not if he had a price. But I think it's not, I like Rabiot, and it's not that I'm like, yeah, sign him over Ugarte, sign him over Zubimendi, sign him. It's that he's free. Like, he's a free agent. He's a good player. He's better than McTominay, better than Casemiro. Same like we brought in Christian Eriksen. Like, it doesn't have to be a long contract. The wages aren't that high, contextually speaking. Like, it seems like it's a no-brainer in many, many ways, especially if, let's say, Casemiro and McTominay were sold, or even just one of those guys is sold. To me, that's a no-brainer. But not everyone agrees. KD, that's a good upgrade. PS, welcome. Nice, good deal. Sell Cass McTominay first, then see. Yeah, I mean, the hard part with Cass, I think, is those wages. And honestly, I'm starting to get the feeling that Casemiro doesn't want to leave United, or at least he doesn't want to go to the Saudi League. And I don't think that anyone but the Saudi League would buy him. And so it's interesting. Vibes, Man United, and to see a Vibes cartel going to be free tomorrow. Katie says rejected pool and I want him. Again, those are just some reports, but that's why we drink the Scouts Tears energy drink. It keeps the energy so we can laugh at Liverpool. Remember that hashtag I tried to start a while back, LAL, laugh at Liverpool. And so 130, 145K free signing, a little signing bonus. Let me know in the chat. You know, some people have already made their thoughts known. Would you take Rabiot? Would you not? Would you want to see it? We need to sell. I think right now we're in that sell to buy kind of phase of the transfer window. We haven't seen a whole lot of movement. We've seen talks and updates and things, but there hasn't been a whole lot of active movement in terms of us buying people. Right now it sounds like we're focusing a lot on the Wan-Bissaka deal, potentially McTominay, potentially Lindelof. And I think that if we can get those 3 deals wrapped up this week and move those guys out the door, maybe this weekend we could do something. Today is, though, it's continuing. It's a big news day for midfielders. Because Sport Witness is also reporting that Galatasaray have submitted a £12.5 million bid for Scott McTominay. The report claims, though, that United are holding out for something in the 25 million range, so twice as much as what they offered. On McTominay, Muppeteers also commented on recent reports that Fulham were returning with an improved bid for McTominay. Remember, Fulham reportedly made that bid recently. They report that if Fulham offer anywhere near close to 30 million for McTominay and he wants to move to Fulham, United will accept the offer. Remember, Fulham just bought Emile Smith-Rowe for like 35 million too. So if Fulham are in the spending mode, I mean, I say get in on that and just let them get McTominay. Nothing personal against McTominay. I just don't think he's good enough. He's got a good shot on him. Obviously, he had some goals last season, really good season for him as far, but I think in the area of the pitch where he plays, I think that he doesn't offer enough, and he's actually a liability in many ways. Yeah, he's good at making late runs in the box. He's good at causing some chaos on set pieces. But other than that, I don't see him. So he's not a striker. If he were a striker, I'd be like, yeah, stick with McTominay and let him play as backup. But he's not a striker. He plays as in the midfield, and he doesn't really do a whole lot that you need a midfielder to do. So if Fulham want to come back, if Galatasaray want to come back, would you guys sell McTominay? KD, to be honest, if we lose McSauce, Eriksson, and maybe Casemiro, or Rabiot, Ugarte, Zubimendi midfield would be an amazing upgrade. Yeah, I mean, that would be an amazing upgrade. Rabiot, Ugarte, Zubimendi, Manu, Mount, Bruno. That's a great Collier maybe rotating in. That's a really good midfield. Darker, I feel Rabiot could become Pogba 2.0. I mean, I know a lot of people are hung up on Rabiot's his agent and some of the issues that he had at PSG. The PSG stuff, like and the stuff with the Euros. So that was several years ago. It's actually been super quiet on Rabiot for the last like 3 or 4 years. So there's not been a whole lot of drama, I think. Then if you look at how old he was younger than he was like 23, 24 back when all that drama was going on. Like, people can grow up, people can learn, people can mature. It does happen. I know it's hard to believe, but it does happen, right? People can make changes. I wouldn't have a job. So I'm a therapist. I'm a mental health professional. I wouldn't have a job if people couldn't make changes, right? And people can learn from issues and move on. That's just the truth. So I'm not saying that Rabiot can't possibly be an issue in the future. I'm just saying maybe it's not quite fair to assume that he would be just because he has done stuff in the past. So we'll see. Biaka, good evening. Good evening to you, my friend. Danny B, we could have got 30 last year, but McSauce wouldn't leave to West Ham. Yeah, I remember Newcastle were looking at him too. Was that like last January? Was that this January? And I remember thinking at the time, it must have been last year because he wasn't that great last year. I remember thinking at the time, why are we not taking what Newcastle want for McTominay? I didn't get that at the time. I think Amrabat is better than McTominay, but I think what McTominay has going for him for a lot of people, for some of the fan base, it's his effort and the energy and in his fight. The guy, it's like Phil Jones. Say what you want about him as a footballer, skill-wise, but the guy puts in a shift. He doesn't give less than 110% whenever he puts that shirt on, and you cannot fault him for that. That is admirable. And even some of the best talented players that we've had don't come anywhere near that in terms of effort. Also, he's an academy product. I mean, a lot of top Reds, a lot of really like that portion of the fan base really like that, really respect it. They have a fondness for their academy products. I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying that just because someone came through the academy, it doesn't mean they're good enough for United starting 11 or the match day squad. So I just try to be a little realistic in that regard. I want the best for United, and sometimes forcing academy players into the starting 11. Yes, we have the record and I'm proud of the record, but sometimes forcing it actually hurts us when it comes to performance and results. And so I just don't want it to be forced for the at the detriment to what we do on the pitch. So Danny B, I can't wait to see McSauce gone, one of the worst midfielders. I mean, a lot of other midfield clubs have looked at him. West Ham wanted him. Fulham are interested. Newcastle wanted him. So, and I think that he could be good in a team like that, in a team like Everton, things like that. I think he would be just fine. I think put him in a West Ham midfield, like Souček and stuff. He's got that same similar kind of profile. I think he'd do just fine, personally. Darkrow, would it be wise to consider prices to get rid of unwanted players? I mean, you always want to make sure you're getting. I mean, if Emile Smith-Rowe, who literally had less starts last season than McTominay had goals, if Emile Smith-Rowe is going for 35 million, you need to be holding out for at least that for McTominay, in my opinion. But that's why we're here. That's my opinion. I want to hear yours. Danny B says Longstaff is better than McTominay, for fuck's sake. I mean, I don't watch enough Newcastle personally. I only really watch them when they play us. But I remember we were linked with Longstaff when Ollie was here, right? And he scored a couple of bangers against us. But Newcastle, I mean, they haven't really done much. I think that, I don't know. It's hard. Again, maybe you watch more Newcastle than I do, so I'll defer to your better judgment on that one. Danny B, I disagree. He doesn't always give 100%. I see him strolling back, losing his man multiple times. I don't think that, to me personally, that's not an effort thing. I think that's a footballing IQ kind of thing and just a talent thing. Because he's not a defensive midfielder, right? And so I think when it comes to his reading of the game, McTominay, he doesn't know where to be. I think McTominay has like one setting, and that's run full speed ahead, full force, and foul or push over whoever's in my way and try to score a goal. And so it may be an effort thing. And again, I'm not, I think what I'm saying is I think that's a lot. What I've seen online in a way is a lot of people have always praised McTominay for his effort. I just don't think he has a good enough footballing IQ to read the game enough, to position, to read the game, and make those kind of interceptions and tackles. I mean, every time he makes a tackle, he gives away a foul. And that's what happens when you're not good at reading the game from a defensive standpoint. And so it could be either or. I'm not saying definitively. Again, this is why we have these discussions, right? So everybody can share their thoughts and get good perspective on things. Eddie Souček is a perfect comparison. I think I see similarities in Souček to McTominay, but that's just me. Darker, I believe Klopp would have gone for Emile Smith-Rowe if he was at Liverpool. Klopp. Remember, Klopp didn't want Mo Salah. Klopp wanted Julian Brandt. So again, this is what, going back to the whole Jemba thing and stuff, and the Anthony stuff. Sometimes this is why managers aren't in charge of the talent ID and the scouting and stuff. It's why it's a team effort. It's a system of checks and balances, because if you go by one person's perspective, you wind up like Grant Souness and you get an Ali Dia. So he's level as Division 1 striker, huh? You're talking about McTominay. And so, yeah, Fulham could come back, prove bid for McTominay. Sounds like Galatasaray you're interested. I'm surprised Mourinho hasn't come in for McTominay, honestly. We know that Mourinho wants Lindelof. Mourinho's at Fenerbahce now. I think that, obviously Mourinho loves McTominay. He's the one who brought him into the first team. Mourinho created his own end of season award, the Manager's Player of the Year, to give that to McTominay. Remember that season? If you needed any more further proof of the narcissism that Mourinho oozes, I mean, that's it right there in a nutshell. But anyway, Danny B, I'm going to stop now. I just pissed him. Slap probably. Yeah, I remember I saw Melissa Reddy made some comments about Harry Maguire isn't going anywhere. I don't know if that's some sort of a fresh take or if she knows something. To me, when I saw that, it sounded me more like her basically repeating what Maguire said in his recent interview, but just repeating it in a different way. Like if Maguire says, well, no one's told me that they want to leave me, so I'm just going to plan to be here. And someone else says, well, it doesn't look like Maguire is going anywhere. That's kind of what I interpreted that as being. I wouldn't take anything Melissa Reddy says as gospel either, but that's just me. Remember we played him CB. We played a lot of people CP last year. McTominay plays as a center back for Scotland all the time. I don't think he's a good defender. I mean, he probably looks better for Scotland because of their, they play a little more defensively. And so when you play that way, it's kind of like how Chris Smalling looked like the next Beckenbauer under Louis van Gaal because of the way we played, and it made Smalling look really, really good. And we were also up for the Hay was also up for the Golden Glove that season as well. If you remember what we missed out because Smalling had an old goal, but it is what it is. Darko, when McTominay moved to Turkey, I can't see McTominay wanting to move to Turkey unless he backs himself to be a starter somewhere. And then I think he would probably maybe want to go. I don't think Turkey would be his preference. I think if he had to choose between Galatasaray and Fulham, he would probably choose Fulham. But again, I'm not McTominay, so I don't know. Many fans don't appreciate what some of these players bring. It's why Fletcher, Carrick, O'Shea, Park are underappreciated. It's a team sport. I would argue that all four of those players are better than McTominay. I would never put Carrick and Park in the same sentence as McTominay ever, specifically. And again, John O'Shea and Darren Fletcher equally in there. I wouldn't even put McTominay in the same sentence as like a Daily Blind when we had him either. But again, it sounds like I'm dissing, so I'm just not. It's just more about a commentary on his talent and his skill as a footballer. But he also plays Premier League football, and that's like less than like 0.1% of players get to that point. So what do I know, right? Danny B says Jose was the first to play him CB. That Jose loved McTominay, man. He absolutely loves him. And again, it's one of those things where like it's like the other side of that coin, right? So like if you look at like Donny van de Beek, the thing people love to say was like, oh, all these managers didn't want to play him, didn't want to use him. That's beside the point. But then if you flip it around and say all these managers play McTominay, like from Jose to Ole to Ten Hag, they all play him on a regular basis. Like then what? How can you argue, right? It's interesting to think about the other side of the coin in that regard. So and a lot of thoughts. It seems like on McTominay, Chris Beckenbauer, Smalling. Hey, you never know. Let's shift to the right side of the pitch for a moment. Let's move away from midfield. I'm gonna hit that right flank. So Muppeteers are on fire today with some of their reports and some of their updates. They claim that Wan-Bissaka has shown openness to join West Ham after new discussions, but they need to meet his wage demands. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't take a pay cut, but that he has a minimum amount that he wants to get paid to go to West Ham. This move has been very divisive among the fan base. A lot of people are arguing to keep Wan-Bissaka. A lot of people don't think Mizraoui is better. Since the Mizraoui wings have gotten stronger, I do think Mizraoui is a better all-around fullback than Wan-Bissaka. I said the other day, what's the one thing everybody says Wan-Bissaka is best at in the world, right? You say it with me, it's his tackling, right? Everybody says that. But then I showed you yesterday that Mizraoui actually averages more tackles per 90 than Wan-Bissaka. So I'm not saying that means Wan-Bissaka is not good. I'm just saying the one thing that everybody says Wan-Bissaka is the best at, Mizraoui has higher percentage at. So you make of that what you want. So it is what it is. But we'll see. It sounds like Wan-Bissaka is open. I think it's pretty much one of those things where Wan-Bissaka has basically been told, like, you know what, you're not in the plans. And it's not an issue that Wan-Bissaka is bad. It's, again, like what did I say earlier in the video? It's about the manager. It's about the system. A player may not be a bad player, but in context of system, they just don't fit. And it just is what it is. Why is Skype trying to get me to Skype? I don't ever use Skype. Weird. And so I think Wan-Bissaka could be very good at West Ham. I think he really could. Lopetegui, I don't really know a whole lot about Lopetegui's tactics. I know under David Moyes, I could see that working out as well. But Moyes is not there anymore, so it is what it is. Danny B says Maz twice the player Emma Wan-Bissaka is. Maz is Dallo light. I mean, it's going to be a tough one between the two. I think that it could be a straight up slugfest between Dallo and Mezraoui for that right hand spot, but they can both play on the left as well. And what we've seen is that we lose left backs more frequently than we lose right backs to injury. And so I think being able to have adequate cover. I mean, the question is this: who would you, in this injury situation, would you want Dallo and Mezraoui as your fullbacks, or would you want Dallo and Wan-Bissaka as your fullbacks? If you had to choose moving forward, you could choose either one of those combinations. I think a lot of people probably choose Mezraoui. And I think that it's all about, again, is Ten Hag. I think he wants his fullbacks to get forward a little more, to have a little more attacking kind of IQ. And that doesn't mean you're just good with your footwork or anything. It just means you know positioning, you know what your triggers are for this and that, you know how to overlap at very well, you know how to underlap, how to move into midfield when necessary, to cover if you need to. Again, it's about footballing IQ, being in tactical intelligence. And I think that a tactical manager like Ten Hag does need a certain level of that from his players. So I think this is why you see a lot of our players struggle under tactical managers. But KD, Dallo or Mezraoui and Bissaka as plan B. I think we have, Malacia is still recovering. I think Amas is probably going to be in and out of the squad, not necessarily starting 11, but the squad. I think we're going to see Amas included a little bit more as well. And he did look good against Arsenal. He's looking better with each preseason game that he plays. But we'll see how it goes. Again, so moving up the right flank, we got some fresh reports today regarding Antony. The report is that Besiktas have made a £20 million bid for Antony. Their proposal reportedly is £5 million paid annually for the next 4 years. So again, there's Chelsea amortization settings. Honestly, that stuff's been going on forever. So it's not anything new, but it's just interesting. Reportedly, United are open to those negotiations. Remember the other day we did talk about Besiktas being interested. Antony didn't want to leave, but United do want to move him on. So again, it's not as simple as just putting the player up for sale, accepting a bid, and getting another club interested. The player, at the end of the day, still has to want to leave. Remember, we were talking to West Ham for Harry Maguire, and he didn't want to leave. And Harry Maguire is still a United player. So it's not as simple as that. This isn't FC24 where you just squad, add to transfer list, and just wait for the offers to come in and then just pick one or delegate to, or whatever the way you usually handle those is. There's a lot of moving parts, and these are human beings, and they have ambition, they have preferences, they have all this stuff. Some of the players might see it as a step down to go someplace like Besiktas and don't want to. Even if they're not playing at United, for sometimes people might still think it's better to not play and be a United player than to go play in Turkey. I don't know. That's not a diss on Turkey. I'm just trying to speculate on the different things. So what we got here? Danny B. Maz's intelligence on and off the ball is far superior. I agree. Danny B. Aaron Wan-Bissaka positioning can be terrible and isn't press resistant. So the thing that Wan-Bissaka has over Mezraoui is interceptions. He's got, I think, at least one more average interception per 90 than Mezraoui. But as far as tackles, which is and aerial duels, which Mezraoui's attacking numbers are just streets ahead of Wan-Bissaka's, and I think that's what makes him a more well-rounded fullback. A lot of people think that, okay, you're a fullback, you need to be able to defend. I mean, I would say Trent Alexander-Arnold has a valid argument against that. Fullbacks need to be able to get up and down the pitch. They need to offer a lot on and off the ball, which means you need to be able to overlap. You need to be able to put a ball in the box. You need to be able to pick a pass. And yeah, you need to be able to track back and make recovery runs and things. You have to be able to do a lot of that stuff, which takes footballing intelligence. So FFP, we can't take FFP loss on Antony. FFP is always an interesting one for me. I've often wondered, because the FFP time bracket is 3 years. Does it still hurt you financially as far as FFP is concerned if it's been 3 years since you bought a player and you take a loss? I don't know how. I'm not a football financial expert. Maybe I'll crack open The Price of Football by Kieran Maguire. I have that somewhere back there. But if you guys know more about how FFP works in that regard, you let me know. Again, Ineos didn't pay for Antony. That was a Glazer, Woodward, whatever signing under Ten Hag. So it's not like Ineos are taking a loss. The club are taking a loss, but I think Ineos see long-term, big picture more than they see what we've done under the Glazers, where We changed managers every couple years. Everything was very short-sighted. All the signings were short-sighted. There was no plan. It was just, let's just do what we need to do to scrape by and get some success. Let's get top 4. Let's sell some shirts. I know I say that's a myth, but that's the mindset, I think. So it is what it is. But again, this report also claims, though, that United want to bring in PSV Eindhoven winger Johan Bakayoko, and if they move on Antony, that's reportedly who our next target is for the wing. Bakayoko, remember I mentioned him in that Ruud van Nistelrooy video, so if you haven't yet gone watch that deep dive into what Ruud van Nistelrooy offers as a coach, go check it out. But Bakayoko was one of the young attackers that Ruud worked with during his time as PSV's manager. So he's familiar with the kid. He taught him, how to attack. The same with like Yakpo and Madueke. These are all players that worked with Ruud at PSV. But it sounds like maybe we haven't given up on a winger. I just think we need to move players on. Plus, what does that mean for Sancho? What does that mean for Ahmad? It's interesting. I do like Bakayoko. I think he's a very promising young player. But I think that given the choice, I'm trying to be contextual and realistic with where we're at. And obviously, in a perfect world, you would just sign everybody and try to sell the deadwood. We just don't live in that world. So given financially where we need to strengthen, still up in the air with what's going on with Lenny Euro and everything, I think that I would probably stick with Ahmad. If we can't sell Sancho, you're probably going to have to stick with Sancho, but Garnacho and Rashford. If we sold Sancho, sold Antony, yeah, go bring in Bakayoko. Let he and Ahmad and Garnacho and Rashford all fight for. I'd rather have 4 wingers that we can rotate than that. But we've got to wait and see what happens, right? So, Darko, isn't Ineos staying with Ten Hag out of necessity? I mean, not necessarily. What makes you say that? Why would they need to stick with Ten Hag? They didn't have to. You don't have to. I mean, it wouldn't have cost a ton to sack him, right? Some people argue there wasn't available managers. There are a lot of available managers out there, and it's not like you have to get free agent managers. You can convince managers who are at other clubs or with international teams to make the move. I think it's Man United. You can do that. So you let me know why you think that it was a necessity. But Danny B, Bakayoko, very similar to Doku. I like Bakayoko a lot. Like I said, you guys know I watched a lot of Eredivisie. I've seen a lot of Bakayoko. He's very good, very tricky young winger. I do like him. Obviously, kind of took over when Madueke left as well. So, Katie, I think Glazers just inherited their dad's wealth and holdings and continued living like Don Jr. Yeah, I could go on and on about the Glazers. If you guys haven't read, it's behind me somewhere. I'll find it, another video. It's a book. Go look it up. It's called The World's Biggest Cash Cow, The World's Biggest Cash Machine. I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically it's a whole book on the Glazers' ownership of Man United, how that came to be, what's been going on and everything. So go check that book out. But yeah, the Glazers have basically stood on the shoulders and in some cases the graves of the giants at this club who came before them, didn't do any of the work, and basically just slapped on a new coat of paint whenever they could, and without spending any of their own money, just to keep reaping the success of the name and the stature that we've built for ourselves over a century. And so everyone knows about the Glazers. Everyone hates the Glazers. There's a reason that they made a rule about buying clubs after the Glazers did the way they did, because you're not allowed to do that anymore. But we'll see. Danny B. Bakayoko always won my top winning target. And to be honest, yeah, I like Bakayoko a lot. We just have a lot of wingers. We spent a lot of years buying wingers. Ollie bought Pellistri. He bought Ahmad. He bought Sancho. We bought Antony. We have Garnacho that came through. We bought him from Atletico's academy. We got Rashford, obviously. Like, we have a lot of wingers. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all good, but we have a lot of wingers on the books. And so we have to move some on if we want to bring more in, because it's getting ridiculous out here. We have one number 6. We have about 8 wingers. What are you going to do? So we'll see. A lot of people, I mean, it seems like Danny likes Bakayoko. I like Bakayoko a lot, but I think Antony and Sancho would have to go probably, but we'll see. Darkro, I always thought Glazers were let down by the people running. Glazers are running the club. I mean, that's who runs the club, man. They don't do anything. You wouldn't be able to tell because they're never around unless there's a photo op or a chance to get a photo with a trophy. But they run the club. They don't care about it. And I think that, so a lot of people, like, we're going off on a tangent, but that's fine. So when Sir Jim got his 27% share, a lot of people were like, well, what's he going to do as a minority owner? Well, he's already shown what he can do as a minority owner, but he he has the single largest share of any individual. The Glazers together have to split their shares 6 ways because there's 6 of them. And from what we remember from when the whole sale process was going on, only 2 of the Glazer siblings actually wanted to keep the club. The rest of them wanted to sell. And so it's not hard. It wouldn't be hard to convince the other 4 to move on. And so keep that in mind as well. So moving on to some non-transfer related news, I did see some interesting comments from like Darren Fletcher and Johnny Evans. They're being interviewed on the preseason tour. And so they've been talking a little bit about Ruud van Nistelrooy's impact on training, what he brings as a coach. And again, a lot of people are surprised at just how adept and advanced he is and how learned he is when it comes to the defensive part of the game, not just the attacking. Because he was such a prolific striker, a lot of people think, okay, he's going to be working with the strikers. Ruud, if you go watch that video, so obviously he left PSV, and then he spent last season working with a lot of different coaches. So he went to work with Pellegrini, talked a lot with Bielsa, spent some time with Carlo Ancelotti, learning as a coach. Ruud is a sponge when it comes to a manager, when it comes to a coach. He is learning everything. And so, yes, he was a good attacker, but because he was such a good attacker, he knows how defenders can frustrate you as an attacker. So he knows. That's why I was always like, why don't goalkeepers and strikers hang out more when they're on the same team? Because they can tell each other what they hate about the other, kind of a thing. So I think that's what Ruud offers. So remember, I did touch upon that in my deep dive. He does set up his defenses very compactly, very hard to break down. He's actually very good at that. And so it's good to see that getting a little bit more recognition, because Ruud, yes, he was a manager and now he's an assistant coach, but he is a very, very good manager, and he is just learning. Like I said, he is a sponge. And so I think it's going to be great. I think you're going to see more than just the attackers benefit from having Ruud around personally. Katie, Fletch and them need to watch your deep dives. I mean, I'm sure Darren Fletcher has forgotten more about football than I will ever learn in my life. But there's nothing that I haven't said in my deep dives that you can't find, with spending some time on the internet. And no, I'm not just talking about Wikipedia. You got to do some deep dives and stuff to figure some stuff out. And yeah, it does take a little bit of time, but like I said many times, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff. I like that kind of stuff. I love scouting players and looking and watching young, lesser known players and seeing them develop and come through. Like, I was all over Morten Holman when he was at Lecce, and now everyone's talking about him as he's Sporting. Like, he's a very good player. I'm not saying I'm the greatest. I'm just saying I'm a bit of a nerd, and so it is what it is. I probably watch more football and spend more time reading and researching football than any normal person should. But I also saw some footage today of Ten Hag and Sancho kind of engaged in a bit of a one-on-one chat after training day. It looked like they were getting along. It looked like Ten Hag was talking tactics. He was pointing at different things and different types of movements and things. Whether that means Ten Hag and Sancho, obviously they had that discussion. They've kind of moved on. Whether that means Sancho is part of the plans, or whether it's just more, boosting preseason performance to put him in the shop window, I don't know. Obviously, Sancho has been linked with PSG. There was those links saying personal terms were agreed. Who knows? But it's good to see, right? You may have your thoughts and opinions on Ten Hag or Sancho in that context, but it's good to see that they're just able to kind of put it behind them for the good of the squad and everything. So who knows what that means moving forward, though. But so it started probably right as I was going live. But so obviously we have our next friendly tomorrow night. It's super late. Kickoff's at 10 p.m. my time. So I'm old. I don't know if I'm going to watch that, but we play Real Betis tomorrow. The interesting thing to me was that Amad Diallo was handling the presser today. I think it went live right when I did. Ten Hag wasn't present. So it was interesting. It feels more and more like Amad Diallo is going to be a big part of the plans next season. It sounds like he might have even jumped ahead of Antony in the pecking order. And we saw that late last season as well. Antony was used as a sub a little bit, was coming on and having to play like left back and whatnot. Obviously, there was that famous reaction to having to go play left back. and things. And obviously, I put it in my video the other day, the thumbnail of Anthony's angry face, coming on the pitch as a sub. So I do think Ahmad, to me, has shown more when he's played this season than Anthony has. Obviously, he had that winner, not the winner, sorry, he did have the winner in the FA Cup match against Liverpool, which deserves another swig of this. Scouse tears. You'll always cry alone. So that was a brilliant match. And I think he was asked, I saw he was asked right before I went live, like, how many times have you rewatched that video? And he said, I've watched it many times. Like, it's hard to forget. So, but again, Ten Hag was not present. But what I got most out of this, usually when the player is featured in the pre-match presser, it's because they're going to be a part of the match. So what that tells me is that we talked about the other day after the Arsenal match, Ahmad kind of came off. He looked like he picked up something. It doesn't look like it was anything serious. So it sounds like he's going to be part of the match tomorrow. It sounds like it was just a little soreness, maybe a little quick contact knock, and we're good to go. So that, to me, was good news. But let me know your thoughts. Ahmad, would you like to see him start? Would you like to see him feature more heavily? Do you think he's done enough to earn that spot? Let me jump in on this live chat and get everyone's thoughts. Ahmad over Bakayoko. I'm torn because I really like Bakayoko. I think if we sold Anthony and sold Sancho, go get Bakayoko. But I'd still keep Ahmad. I let him and Ahmad kind of fight it out and then kind of see where the chips fall next summer. Katie says, if he stays, it's good that Sancho and Eric. It's always good. It's always good. Having a happy, fit, and firing Sancho is always good for your club, right? And Ten Hag honestly tried to do that. It just didn't work out. And so it is what it is. Dana B, if I'm not working the next morning, I will watch it. Kind of late for me too. Dude, 10 p.m. kickoffs. This is like an MLS match out here, man. Like, this is why I don't watch MLS. Not just because I don't really rate the MLS that much, but these kickoffs, man, it's a 2-hour. Like, I'm old and I don't go to bed that late. I'm old. Danny B, Bakayoko plays left, but I would be wrong, Kitty. I mean, I think Bakayoko can play both. He rotated with Madueke a little bit, and then with Gakpo a little bit. So I think he's moved more up in the pecking order, right, since both of those guys left. But he is a good young player. I do like Bakayoko a lot. Danny B, Ahmad has to start on the right, but he probably won't. If I see Anthony starting over Ahmad any given match day next season, if Anthony's still here, I'm going to lose my shit. I really am. And I don't think I'm going to be alone because Ahmad has done more in the few matches that he's played than Anthony has done since he got here. I will always love Anthony for his winner against Barcelona because that was such a big goal. I scared everybody at the restaurant I was at watching that on my computer because we didn't have power, so I had to go to a restaurant and watch that. I lost it. Everybody scared. People dropped stuff. An old lady screamed. It is what it is. It happened. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. So I always remember that. So I'm not gonna fault him for that. We'll leave the live chat open just a bit longer because I'm just so happy to be back with you guys today. I'm going to see if there's been updates in this press conference while you guys let me know your thoughts on. Did you guys see any reports, any rumors or anything pop up today that I haven't talked about that you'd like to throw out there for everybody? Sounds like Fabrizio Romano sounds like he has pretty much said we are going to be getting Obi Martin from Arsenal. He did give the here we go. Cheeto, Obi Martin to Man United. Here we go. Talented striker leaves Arsenal and he's just accepted a Man United proposal. Pathway key for Cheeto, who's turned down higher bids from Germany to sign for United. Project convinced the top talent to accept. So sounds like we're getting another young striker coming through. So that's cool. I'm really happy about that. Not really many updates on the presser. And according to Romano, Ruud van Nistelrooy was key in Obi Martin's decision to join us. Sounds like Van Nistelrooy spoke to the player about his development plan. Man, Ruud doing Ruud things. I love to see it, man. This is the thing. So we spoke a little bit way back when we thought Ten Hag might be sacked and we were linked with all these managers. One of the things I spoke about is like, are there managers out there who just have that kind of pull, that presence, like an Ancelotti when he walks into a press conference, or even like a Zidane when they walk into a press conference? And I think Ruud has that. So many young players idolize Ruud growing up. So many players know who he is. I mean, He's such a good striker. I miss Rude's attack in our squad. I really do. So big up Rude, doing Rude things. Oh, once a red, always a red, no matter what you are. So I love it. Danny B. Rashford left, Garnacho right again. I think Rashford might be facing a fight for the starting 11 these days. I mean, obviously he's working hard. Obviously he looked lively in the first half. He wasn't really able to do a whole lot against Arsenal, but he's got a lot of convincing to do, because what frustrates me with Rashford is sometimes when he makes a dribble or pass gets intercepted or something doesn't come off, he just gives up a little too quickly sometimes for me. So we will see. Anthony, Barca winner, Arsenal debut goal, most importantly, saved Ten Hag against Liverpool on the right foot, says Katie. Yeah, I do remember that right foot goal. I mean, Jurgen Klopp should have walked just for letting Anthony score with his right foot in itself. Danny B, Alice Talks Football just put up a video. Yeah, I do watch Alice Talks Football. It's a good channel. Watch all of the channels, Stretford Paddock, United Stand. I do watch Football Terrace now and then. The Overlap, I love watching the Overlap, but I do watch Alice. She's got a great channel. Obviously, it's great to see her grow that over the years as well. KD, forgot to say something in Obi. He actually signed on Friday last week after discussions with staff, especially Rude, asked for a week to say goodbye and put things in order. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched or know a whole lot about Obi Martin. All I've seen is that he's very, very highly rated. Sounds like Arsenal fans are really sad to see him go. It sounds like some United fans really know more about him than I do, which is great. I don't watch Arsenal's academy, so I don't know much about him. But if he's getting better offers from Germany and talking to Rude and seeing what the pathway was for him to convince him to join us over these other clubs, I think that says something. I think that, and I really like that that's out there now in public, because I think the project can be very convincing. And if you're able to convince these kind of players to like De Ligt to take a lower wage, Obi Martin to take a lower offer, or reject better offers from Germany to come here, I think that puts it out there in the football ether that, hey, we're doing something. Ineos are not messing around. Rude is here. We're not messing around. Like, we have a project, we have a plan, we have a solid team. We've assembled the Avengers behind the scenes for the recruitment. We are cooking, and people want to be a part of that. They do. And so I think that the next few years are going to be very important, but I think they're also going to be very exciting for us. And I think we all just really need to enjoy the ride. It's like floating down a river. You can't fight it, just enjoy it and see where it takes you, because I like where we're going. So then if he wants to know, do you think we gave him a guarantee of a chance in first team by a certain time? I have no idea, because we still have Wheatley, who's just now coming through. I think it could be like a Garnacho thing. So he's about the same age Garnacho was when we brought him from Atletico, right? That 15, 16 frame. I think he's going to spend a couple of years probably playing in the academy, working on like the FA Youth Cup and all that. And then we'll see what happens. While Wheatley probably spends the next year or two maybe featuring and rotating here and there like he's been. And like maybe Wheatley could do it alone. We're getting Xerxes and Hoyland. Obviously, it would be great to have an option like Wheatley on the bench or something, but if we need to, Rashford can play as a number 9. Something's not that big a deal. We can even switch formations around if we need to. So we have a lot of young strikers coming through right now, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So we'll see. KD says, Academy is anything to go by. I watch it a lot. He'll be great. Has a better showing than Greenwood, and I was all agog about him and Cobby. Needs some managing though. Yeah, and I think that with youth it's always difficult. I think of all the squad, I think the youth is the hardest to do, because there's a very delicate line between rushing them and being patient with them. You don't want to rush them too much. You don't want to put too much pressure on their shoulders, because not everyone is going to be a Cobby Manu who's going to be able to come in and just handle the pressure, handle the step up like that, or Garnacho. Not everyone's going to be able to do that, and so we want to be able to manage them very well in that, keep them hungry, but not give them too much pressure and not make them too frustrated and things. And that's why man management is a very valuable tool to have, because like Fergie, it's kind of like when you have multiple children, right? So I don't have children, but I've worked with people who have, and I know people who have. You love them the same, you have the same kind of general things, but you don't interact with them always the same, because they're very different. Every player in the squad is going to be different. So managing them is going to look different. And that's just the way it is now. So Katie, yep, as Sean said, he'll have to take some time. Danny, nice Katie. Do you think he's a level above Mason was at that age? I mean, if so, I'm going to defer to KD's judgment here. If he sounds like he knows a lot more about Obi Martin than I do, so I'm excited. That makes me more excited, man. So getting everybody excited. But on that note, I am going to wrap it up because I have been talking for an hour, and while I love it and I'm happy to be back this afternoon, more happy to interact with you guys, get your thoughts and engage. Hit that like button if you haven't yet, please. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. It has some new faces in here tonight. And so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Danny, KD, Darkrow. Who else do we have in here tonight? I saw Vibes up there earlier. Vibes is still here. Biaka, thanks for stopping by. And then Abebe Deliso. Thank you, everyone who jumped in the live chat tonight. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your opinions and just your thoughts on everything and your feedback. Cheers, Danny. Let me know if you. I'll probably stop by tomorrow morning if we get some news. Let me know if you guys are planning on staying up late for that match tomorrow. But I don't know yet if I will or not. My buddy and his brothers are actually going to drive to Chicago tomorrow to go to the Chicago for the AC Milan Madrid match because he's a big Madrid fan. So that'll be fun. But anyway, take it easy, guys. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Later.